Well, hello, my friends. This is Will with the Counterdocs. Today we are going to talk about Muslim atrocities. I'm not going to waste my time into the daily stabbings, the mass stabbings, the daily rapes, grapes, the burning people in cages, slitting people's throat while streaming, sort of stuff. Those are very vanilla. Or, blowing up a church, suicide bombing. Those are very vanilla behaviors and regulatory behaviors of the religion of Islam. I am an Orthodox, so I'm going to share with you some of the stuff that not many people know. Okay, and because we Orthodox Christians have been on the front lines of resisting Islam way before the West. We started this in the 600s in Syria. And I want the audience of this video to be liberals, okay, women, all sorts of women, especially feminists, and even conservative women. Um, and I hope that your kids are not around when you listen to this, by the way. I do not want any kids to hear this. And I just want you to consider um, your current voting behaviors. I know voting doesn't really change much stuff, but I just want you to be aware. Okay, you're my fellow countrymen, and I care about you, so I want you to know these things. And with that said, let's dive into the slideshow real quick here. Okay, so it's titled Muslim Atrocities. Obviously, we're talking about Muslim atrocities. And when Muslims come to you and tell you, hey, we're peaceful people, or you just meet your friendly Muslim coworker, I want you to understand that Muslims do this thing, and it's taught in the Quran. It's called taqiyya. So it is permitted for Muslims to lie to you, to put on a displays to deceive you for the goal of spreading Islam. So Muslims are encouraged to lie about their peaceful nature to spread Islam. Okay. And a lot of times, what they're doing in the West right now is called sex jihad, in which, by the way, this is taught by Muhammad that they must breed, they must make peace when their numbers are weak. And whenever they become strong, the peace must be scrambled. They must take over the country forcefully and um, imply Sharia law. And we're going to see a lot of these examples come up in this presentation here. So let's begin. Okay, so we're going to begin with North Africa. Okay, at this point, Syria has already fallen. Okay, so we have the Battle of Sifatullah in the 600 CEs. We have mass grape of women and children, and they were given to grape specifically by soldiers. Campaign against the Berbers. These are Christians. Women captured in thousands. They were sent to Damascus as sex slaves. And at the end, we had the fall of Carthage, which communities of Christians were slaughtered and eliminated. Now, if you go to Carthage today, you will not find any churches. They were all slaughtered mercilessly. Enslaved women and female children were distributed to Muslims as sex slaves. And the notable Al-Andalus trade in North Africa, what they implemented was that all foreigners who are not Muslims are legitimate targets for sexual slavery, according to the Islamic law. So any dumb person, or just people who happens to travel to this land, as long as you're Muslim and you're a foreigner, they're just going to capture you, sell your children, girls, sell your wife, sell your little boys to sexual slavery. Okay. Now, against the Coptics, this is kind of the first big incidents of atrocities. This is John of Nicu's chronicles. In the cities and towns that resisted, the Arab forces exterminated inhabitants, put populations to the sword, and took large numbers into captivity. Women and children were among those captured and were distributed or sold as slaves. And what did they do? Well, by the way, that means sex slaves. So for those of you who don't know. And the Muslims put to the sword all who resisted them, and they took captive the women and children, and they plundered their goods. The Muslims destroyed the monasteries and slew the monks, and they plundered the churches and carried off the sacred vessels. Now, don't worry, this is nowhere as bad as where we're going. So let's just stick with me here. Byzantium, okay? The fall of Byzantium, 4,000 citizens were massacred immediately. There were executions all throughout the city. Eyewitness account Leonard of Shields, a Latin bishop present during the siege, described the Ottoman invaders pillaged the city, murdered or enslaved tens of thousands of people, and raped women and children. Every tent was filled with, quote, handsome boys and beautiful girls. 12,000 women and children were sold into sex slavery, many nuns. Nuns and women in monasteries were specifically targeted to be sexually assaulted. Churches and monasteries turned into brothels with special advertisement. So they have a kink for, raping nuns and stuff, right? And following the siege, survivors were hacked into pieces when they had the festival of the fall of Constantinople. Okay, so we have George Spruntzes. Okay, this guy, his own daughters and wives were sent to sexual slavery. Its holy altars supported food and wine and were also employed in the enactment of their perversions with our women, virgins, and children. So they put nuns, young girls, and children on the altar to God, and they raped them. Okay, Leonard of Shields. Women were raped, virgins deflowered, and youth forced to take part in shameful obscenities. Okay. The nuns left behind, even those who were obviously such, were disgraced with foul debaucheries. The Grand Duke's beautiful daughter was forced to lie on the great altar of Hagia Sophia with a crucifix under her head and then raped. Okay. Now let me read that for you one more time. The Grand Duke's beautiful daughter was forced to lie on the great altar of Hagia Sophia with a crucifix under her head and then raped. So when Muslims come to you says, we worship the same God, and I just want you to know, okay, if they truly believe we all worship the same God, would they do this on the altar to their God? Just think about it. The convent of St. Theodosia, 47 nuns barricaded themselves, but were eventually violated or dispersed. Charles T. Rick's 1954 edition of History of Mehmed the Conqueror, English translation of Michael Critobulus in the 1460s, describing the atrocities. And the great church was filled with the tumult of those who were being dragged away and those who were dragging them, and with the noise of blows and cries of those who were being beaten. They were profaned the great and sacred church by every kind of violence, making it a public brothel and a place of every sort of perversion. Here's the special treatment to women and children. And by the way, we're going to see this repeat everywhere we go. Okay, Duke, as a Byzantine historian in the 400s, who can recount the calamity of that Holocaust? Who can describe the accompanying circumstances? The enraged Turkish soldiers gave no quarter when they had massacred, and there were no longer any resistance. They were intent on pillage and roamed through the town, stealing, just robbing, pillaging, killing, raping, and taking captive men, women, children, old men, young men, monks, priests, people of all sorts and conditions. There were lamentations and weeping in every house, screaming in the crossroads. and sorrow in all churches, the groaning of grown men and the shrieking of women, tearing, enslaving, raping, forced unions. Hmm. By the way, this is coming to your country. Uh, the communist Turk sought the most tender maiden, the lovely nuns, who therefore belonged only to one god, was now seized and bound by another master. The raping caused the tugging and pulling of braids of hair, the exposure of bosoms and breasts, the outstretched arms. This is what they did to nuns, and this is what they will do to nuns very soon in the West. Captives exchange masters 2 and 3 times in one day. So those of you who don't know what this means that these women, nuns, and young girls were captured and they were raped by multiple people a day. This is also called comfort women. And this is done by the Japanese towards Europeans, Koreans, and Chinese, in which they have these women locked up in cells where their soldiers can take turns raping, and these would happen multiple times. These women are literally kept alive for the purpose of pleasure. And I just want you guys to think about the horror these people went through, okay? Women and girls were stripped for inspection, sold naked, leading to concubinage. The female captives were divided among the Turks, and the more beautiful ones were reserved for the Sultan's harem or for high-ranking officers. This is an account from Critololus. There was a further sight, terrible and pitiful beyond all tragedies. Young and chaste women of noble birth and well-to-do, accustomed to remain at home and who had hardly ever left their own premises, and handsome and lovely maidens of splendid and renowned families, till then unsullied by male eye, some of these were dragged by force from their chambers and hauled off pitilessly and dishonorably. Other women, sleeping in their beds, had to endure nightmares. Okay. Niccolo Barbaro. They sought out the monasteries, and all the nuns were led to the fleet and ravished and abused by the Turks, and sold at auction for slaves throughout Turkey. And all the young women were also ravished and then sold for whatever they would fetch, although some of them preferred to cast themselves into the wells and drown rather than fall into the hands of the Turks, as did a number of married women also. So if they ever dispute with you in the Quran where Muhammad allows for the rape of captured women when they're still married, this is the right interpretation. Okay, this is the right interpretation for you guys. This is Dr. Raymond Abraham in his recent book, Sword and Scimitar, and these are eyewitness accounts that he has gathered. When they had massacred, and there was no longer, we read this before. Okay. There were virgins who awoke from troubled sleep to find those brigands standing over them with bloody hands and faces full of abject fury, dragged them toward them, forced them, dishonored them, raped them at the crossroads, and made them submit to the most terrible outrages. Tender children were brutally snatched from their mother's breasts, and girls were pitilessly given up to strange and horrible unions, and 1,000 other terrible things happened. So we're going to see this behavior continue everywhere the Ottomans and the Muslims conquer, right? And we see it today in the Middle East too. When they conquer a place, they take the children away from the mother, and they either rape them in front of the mother or they impale them with swords. And the mother will then become sex slaves. And here is why they do this, right? This is psychological warfare. Okay, if anybody is going to, let's say, rise up to fight, okay, to stage rebellion, it would be the man. And for men, especially Christian men, and this is tailored towards Christian men, we're not going to leave or do anything that puts our wives and daughters and children at risk. So they separate the family, right? So the man is, first of all, it's hard for him to find his wife, who's not a sex slave, And even when he finds the wife, asks her to leave, she's not going to leave because she doesn't know where her children are. Do you get it now? This is where what they do every single place they go. Now, that's literally every country in the Middle East. None of them were Muslims. Okay, this is what all those people have suffered. Now we can talk about the Balkans, right? This is, by the way, this is the later Balkans. So they did something in the Balkans called devshirming. It's called blood tax. So they forcefully forced the Balkan people, okay, the Western Slav, to tribute their children to the Ottomans and the Muslims. And they trained these kids to grow up and go back and kill their parents. Okay, so this is how sadistic they are. So the massacre of 1,000 Serbians, mass grave, and during the Serbian uprisings in the 18,000s, and these are all most of them are committed by their own children. Okay, Greek War of Independence in the 1800s. Okay, they massacred 100,000 Greeks. Okay, 45,000 were enslaved, all women and children, into sex slavery. In the Bulgarian horrors in the 1876, mass rape, mass beheading, burning alive inside churches. You know, your usual daily stuff. Georgia, Tbilisi. When they broke the city of Tbilisi, they massacred 100,000 people, okay, in one day. They destroyed the city church, okay, and they brought an icon of Jesus Christ and the Virgin Mother to the bridge you're seeing now in the picture. And they forced all citizens to spit on the image of Jesus Christ. If they won't do it, they will be impaled or decapitated and thrown down the river. Now, if you do visit Georgia, you should go venerate the river. Okay, 100,000 people refused to give up Christ, and they were murdered today. And infants ripped from their mother's chest and impaled. And again, mass rape. Same thing everywhere you go. Now, more modern, we have the Armenian genocide, okay, 1915. Death marches, mass drownings in the Black Sea. Okay, what they did is they threw people in sacks and they threw them in the Black Sea. Mass shooting, mass rape, your usual stuff. Over 2 million Armenian and other Christians combined killed. Women were stripped naked, tied on cross to suffer death from dehydration. So this is to insult the Lord, by the way. Other modern genocides, okay, we have the Assyrian genocide in 1914, massacre, mass rape, 400,000 Assyrians eliminated. Greek genocide in 1913, 300,000 to 1 million Greeks killed or displaced. Massacre, mass grave, massacre of Chios. 25,000 massacred immediately, 45,000 enslaved sexually for women and children, as always. Okay, now these are normative Islamic behavior, right? What you see in the States and Europe right now, because they don't have the numbers, they're restricted. This is them in their natural habitat. They have nothing to worry about. They have the highest place of authority. This is what they do. Okay. And by the way, look at those numbers. It has not been that long ago. Okay. And how they grew was, in Syria and Arabia, the Christians are nice people, right? They're like, okay, well, although you're pagan, we're still going to love you. Okay. We're not going to persecute you. So they breed in numbers. Once they had the numbers, they massacred all the Christians. And if you think that's not going to repeat, I don't know what to tell you. And we have a very notable case, Saint Metropolitan Chrysostomos of Samara. This happened in 1922. Now we're going to go into the individual cases for you, and we're going to go in detail to show you what happens to individual people. Okay, eyewitness of soldier. The mob dressed him in a white barber's overall from a nearby Italian hairdresser named Ishmael. They then beat him with fists and sticks, spat on his face, and stabbed him repetitively. His beard was torn off, his eyes were gouged out, and his nose and ears were cut off. By the way, all this is done in public. Some reports added that he was subjected to further mutilation, such as having his tongue torn out and toenails pulled out. He was dragged through the streets, possibly by a vehicle, into Iki Shismili district, where he succumbed to his injuries shortly after. St. Theodore Versak. After revoked suppression, this is the Serbian uprising, the Turks promised Theodore that if he returned to Versailles and surrendered, they would stop persecuting the Serbian people in Banat and spare his life. Okay, so again, Muslim promised peace. Okay, knowing that these promises were false, motivated by compassion for his flock and suffering, he returned and surrendered. Upon arrival in Versailles, he was immediately beaten and insulted by the Ottomans. Next day, on the public square in Versailles, the Muslims forced the local Serbs to gather and watch this as Father Theodore was bounded between two forked poles. Two executioners then slowly skinned him alive, starting from the neck downward, carefully separating the skin from the flesh. Carefully separating the skin from the flesh. To prolong his agony and keep him conscious, they periodically poured cold water over him. Throughout the ordeal, Theodore reportedly whispered prayers during the torture with faith and composure. In retaliation for the uprising, Sinan Pasha ordered the burning of St. Sava's relics at Birashar Hill in Belgrade the same year. Okay. Holy Martyrs of Lesbos. Okay. The Muslims attacked the Christians of Lesbos during the Holy Week in 1463. Many of the locals fled to the monastery. Abbot Raphael conducted the Divine Liturgy for the last time there on Holy Thursday. Okay, so these people, they knew that they will die. And they wish to die while celebrating the Divine Liturgy, which those of you who don't know, it's kind of our version of the Mass. The Turks raided the monastery on Holy Friday and tortured the monks to Bright Tuesday, so for a whole weekend onto Tuesday. Father Saint Raphael was tied to a tree upside down, and the Turks sawed through his jaw. Let me repeat that for you. Father Saint Raphael was tied to a tree upside down, and the Turks sawed through his jaw. Monks and villagers were all locked in the monastery and burnt alive. And, you know, this is not even the worst. Irene was the 12-year-old girl of the village mayor Vasilios, who had fled to the monastery with his family. In front of her helpless parents, the Turks cut off one of Irene's arms and legs and cooked her in a cauldron. The Turks burned the monastery and fled. The next night, devout Christians buried the holy martyrs secretly. So they torture the Christians from Thursday to the next Tuesday. And I just want you to think, what type of people, this is a 12-year-old girl, would cut off the arms and legs of a 12-year-old girl and cook her alive in front of her parents. And for the crime of refusing to renounce Christ. And here are the icons. And for you to enjoy for a little bit. Okay. Saint Pelagius of Cordoba, 13 years old boy imprisoned for refusing to convert. All of his limbs were hacked slowly while he's alive, taking hours. So they cut off his arms, hands. Well, they started with the hands and then the arms in joints. That's how they did it. Okay, and the foot too. And then after he died, his body was hacked into pieces and thrown in the river. And the other holy martyrs of Cordoba, okay, in the 800s, Saint Eulogius of Cordoba was scourged over days to death. Saint Flora and Maria of Cordoba scourged until their bones showed. This is what grown men does to women. I just want you guys to know that. And they won't spare children either. And our Holy Mother Philothea of Athens, okay, she used all of her wealth to open monasteries and shelter sexual victims from the Muslims. She would take in women who were abused, who fled from their masters over sexual abuse. Okay, so she would take in sex slaves and help them flee Athens. She will give her own money to the boats to take them away. And the Turks, the Muslims, tracked her down during the vigil for Saint Dionysius the Great. They went into the monastery during the vigil and they grabbed her and they beaten her for over an hour. And when they left her bleeding, and she died. She reposed in the Lord. Okay. Her relics today are still stored at the Cathedral of Athens. Now, think about the man that would do this. Okay, to a helpless, harmless woman. Saint Ephrem of Nia Makri. This is in the 1400s. This is a Greek monk captured during the Muslim raid. Tortured over 8 months, beaten daily, hung upside down, nailed through the hands and feet, and impaled on a mulberry tree with a burning stake for refusing to renounce his faith. Okay, there you go. Saint Constantine Brâncoveanu and his sons. Okay, he is one of the princes of Wallachia. He was forced to watch his sons, including the 11-year-old Matei, beheaded one by one after they refused to convert to Islam before his own beheading. I would be proud if I'm a dad and my sons, even as young as 11 years old, would have the bravery to stand up against these acts of evil. Saint Zlata Kris of Mogan. And those of you who don't know, she is one of the patrons of Bulgarians abroad. She refused to be defiled by a Muslim man and convert to Islam. That's her crime. And what do we do? For that crime, the authorities thrusted a red-hot skewer through one ear and out the other, causing smoke from her nose and mouth. Okay, I'll repeat that, right? Authorities thrusted a red-hot skewer through one ear and out the other, causing smoke from her nose and mouth. All for the crime to refuse the advances of a Muslim creature. Okay, and the description of her injuries, the eyewitness said, even the most stout-hearted of men would be humbled. And she was, after that, tortured for days and killed, beheaded. Catholic martyrs of Otranto, okay, during the Ottoman siege and sack of Otranto, southern Italy. And by the way, this is before schism, believe it or not. 800 plus men led by the tailor Antonio Primaldo refused conversion to Islam after the city fell. And we had the usual, okay, mass rape, married women, single women, virgins, children, nuns, all sold into sex slavery. The men were beheaded one by one on the hill of Minerva in front of their families, who were all literally sold into slavery and sexery. Bishop Stefano Pendanelli, he was sawed in half before the altar to Christ. Okay, there you go. Saint Marco Antonio Bragadin. So this guy is a Roman Catholic saint after schism. Venetian governor of Famagusta during the Ottoman siege, also a cardinal, after surrender. By the way, here you go. He surrendered, and he was promised safety. He was flayed alive publicly by Lala Mustafa Pasha. The skin removed slowly while alive, stuffed with straw, and displayed as a trophy. Okay, eventually this will happen to a lot of the liberal governors, and politicians once they take over. And here are just a few more, of the ordinary regulatory tortures. Okay, Saint Dimitri is the new martyr in Constantinople. This is 1600. Young Christian accused of apostasy, blasphemy, endured flattery, bribes, threats, beatings, and scourging during interrogation by the Ottoman. beheaded. Athanasius of Thessalonica, accused of offenses against Islam, beaten, beheaded. Saint Aquilina of Chalkidiki, young women resist the forced conversion, beaten, scourged, beheaded. Okay. Athemos the Georgian monk captured, during Ottoman incursions, refusing to convert, mutilated. Saint Michael of Grapha, baker accused of blasphemy for denouncing Islam, imprisoned, tortured, beaten, beheaded. Saint Damianos the monk, preaching Christianity, provoked the authorities, imprisoned, tortured, and executed. Jacobus the shepherd, captured, severely beaten, and imprisoned, killed with others. Now, I think that's it. All right, this is all I have for you guys. If you want more, you can find at least 100 more martyrs and incidents of atrocities that are beyond your imaginations, because it seems like to me the Muslims have like a, have a specialty in this. I mean, we have such, Saint Ahmed the Arab, we have, what else, Saint Michael the Fisherman. There are countless Christians were massacred, tortured in ways that you cannot imagine. And I want to show you guys this video real quick, because I think it's important. And I posted this video a while ago. We're going to listen to how this Islamist is going to explain to you why he loves people on the left, and he loves liberals. Let's listen to them.
I would only vote left.
Why is that?
I saw them as very stupid. I would fear the conservatives because they come with principle. That's not someone they can brainwash. But the left, I know they have no values and no principles to begin with. I dare you to find one Islamic extremist that votes for Donald Trump. Never do it. They'd give their vote to the leftist who wants to run around and use and no.
So I want you, let's analyze this, right?
They have no values and no principles to begin with.
They have no values, they have no principles, they have no epistemic starting point. All they have is compassion, the so-called compassion that is extremely misled, and anger that is implanted by the dumb media. Now, I appreciate the compassion. I think it's a virtue to have compassion. But when that compassion gets taken advantage of in case of, immigration and, quote, social justice, it becomes dangerous. And it's not a joke. I mean, we saw it in this presentation. It's not a joke.
I dare you to find one Islamic extremist that votes for Donald Trump.
Right. Nobody would vote, no Muslims would vote for conservatives. Even not just the extremists, including your average friends at work. You know why? Do you really think, that Muslims in America, even just your average Muslim, have conservative values? No, they have, have liberal values? You think they have liberal values and they cover their heads and they want other people to cover their heads? Really? Feminists? You guys really believe this? Why do you think they vote for you guys? It's because you're stupid. You will show anybody compassion. If somebody comes into my house right now, kills me, tries to kill me and rob me, and I shoot him, your compassion will be for the invader, not me. Even though I just almost died. You don't care. You just care about who is the final victim. Did you get it?
Never do it. They'd give their vote to the leftist who wants to run around in pride parades. And Islamic extremists are against gays and homosexuals and transgenders, but they want the left to go and get busy with that. They want them, go speak about the climate, go speak about.
Because, and by the way, you people are, the left, the liberals are so effeminate that once they take over, you will be discarded, killed, and destroyed, like within the brink of an eye. They're not even worried about your resistance at all. So why would they not vote for you? Get all their people in here, and then you're not even a threat.
Abortion, go kill yourselves, go do that.
And they want you to self-destruct. And that's even better for them. They get the vote, they get their numbers, and you guys, and they get to watch you guys self-destruct.
She's fighting for abortion rights and all the other, my body, my choice. Yes, go do that, go do that.
What is the fundamentalist and jihadi agenda for America?
I'll pay attention here.
The future of America has to be Muslim. You vote.
You get it? Now, if you truly love the religion of Islam, especially women, feminists, leftists, you saw what they do to women. You saw what they do to children, especially young girls. If that is what you want for your friends' children, for your sisters, for yourself, for your mother, okay, for your future children, you go ahead and, condone that. And what's interesting is that us men who made the horrible choice to give you people the ability to vote, including morons, incompetent, sad, pathetic, effeminate bastards, the right to vote as well. We are the ones who are going to have to eventually die and possibly tortured in one of the ways we saw in the presentation. I mean, personally, I wish they just flay me or kill me or something, right? I would die in the battle. I'd take my life if I ever have to deal with these fuckers. I mean, I don't want a hot skewer through into my ear out of the other one. So, I mean, we're the ones who are eventually going to have to die for that. Okay. So there you go. I mean, those are just a small portions of what they did to people who are not Muslims. Okay. And it's coming to you and they plan it. Yes, every Muslim is going to smile at you and be your best friend. But deep down, once Sharia calls, they have no problem killing you on the spot. Okay, we see them deceive. I mean, they always deceive people. Muhammad made all the peace with the pagans, and once they had the numbers, what did he do? He said it specifically, screw those peace contracts. We must take over, kill them all, and make them pay jizya. Okay. So I hope you enjoy that presentation. I mean, meanwhile, I don't know what you guys do. I have my kit ready, and I always have a few boxes of these. I don't know if you guys can see that, I soak in pig oil, not the whole thing, the tip of it, just to prepare, right? We Christians were called to love, but we cannot, right? And it doesn't mean that we have to literally give up our values, our country, our people, to willingly subject them to horror, okay, when we can do something about it. I am not a Roman Catholic. I'm against the Western styles of a lot of even the conservative sort of governance. Okay, I think it's eventually going to just repeat the system. But I do think there on this issue, there is a joint effort that we can all make to stop, I wouldn't say extremists, I would say stop Islam. This is a religion and a creed that must be exterminated in every single civilized society. Okay? These values and these behaviors, everywhere they go, they're going to bring human suffering, immense human suffering, degeneracy, and disgrace. I have another video actually that I recorded, I think, a year and a half ago on my channel, which I will put with this video in the same playlist. You can go check that one out. That one is detailing the modern atrocities and the pedophilia. With that said, through the prayers of our holy fathers and our compassionate mothers, Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on us and save us. Amen.